Almost 2 years ago, I embarked on a spiritual journey that would change my life forever. I was in an extremely unhealthy place at that time. My spirit was rooted in worldly desires I knew weren't healthy for me, and my flesh had no intentions to escape it. Even though I was aware of my sins, it was like Edward Brock Jr. in Spider-Man 3 when it came to the Venom suit. I didn't want to let go. Some of you can probably relate to that, not wanting to let go of those unhealthy coping mechanisms because they feel so pleasing to the flesh. But anywho, I was lost, with no path or purpose in sight. I was that someone who thought he already had all the answers to life, but in reality, knew nothing. Someone who thought he could help others externally, but deep down, couldn't even help himself internally. Someone who would look down upon others for the type of sins they be committed, when in reality, my actions were no better than these individuals I critiqued. I wasn't in a state of depression before I started my journey, but I was nowhere near close to happiness either. Far from it, actually. It felt like I was just here, stuck in the middle with no progression in sight. I even found myself questioning life more than ever. All I wanted to do at this point is improve myself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally because I wasn't where I knew I could be. I just never understood how to properly do those things. I knew my life had some sort of purpose. I knew God had something special in store if I truly started walking by faith and following in His presence. So around that time is when I started paying attention to more spiritual influencers and faith-based individuals because everything they uttered was either relatable to me or logical wisdom I never heard anyone else around me speak before. The things they would say gave me hope. It gave me life that seemed non-existent previously. It gave me a vision of where I could be. This kickstarted my journey towards self-improvement, self-discovery, and seeking the answers to life that could potentially benefit me in ways I never even imagined previously. Not fully understanding the meaning or benefits behind what I started to learn, I put it into practice anyway and started trying those different things. Things like going outside daily to embrace nature, using social media less, meditation, seeing more intention, and learning more about God through videos all became a part of my daily routine. I even tried changing up my diet, though that one only lasted briefly. I rarely ate, which isn't good, and I wound up even losing 30 plus pounds from that. But when I did eat, I make sure with some sort of health benefits involved. Putting all these practices to effect is what slowly transformed me from a boy with no answers to a young man with some. Practicing a life centered around spirituality is when I also started to notice more things I paid no attention to previously. I started becoming aware of how toxic and ungodly the modern society we live in really is, as well as my own unhealthy patterns that I thought were normal. I came to the realization that I had been programmed since birth to think in a way that would really never bring me any true happiness or joy. From pornography to social media to celebrity drama to thinking everyone around me paid attention to my every move, when in reality, I was in the center of my own tortured mind. I became conscious of it all. Even the negative agendas that can often be presented throughout the news, I became socially conscious of those things as well. I was heavily consumed in all those things at one point in time and unaware of how they'd been consuming my brain previously and programming me into somewhat unhealthy. I was a victim of deception since entering this world, so I needed to escape that culture. I needed to break away from a path that didn't present me with anything beneficial. I wanted to reprogram my brain from all the lies that were embedded into it by both myself and the society around me. I wanted to reprogram it to not be attached to social media, to instead focus on women who offer substance beyond the physical realm, to not easily fall into temptation and lust, to not feel like I needed parties or all those other worldly things to fit in and have fun, to not think I needed the world around me for validation. Wanting to reprogram my thinking and address my personal struggles is a result in me taking a break from social media for a bit, and when I eventually got back on, I made sure not to use it in a similar manner I had previously. My focus slowly shifted away from things like the views I had on stories or who was paying attention to them, the amount of followers I had, and who unfollowed me, the likes I get, and so forth. Because in reality, it was all an illusion at the end of the day. None of it mattered. It offered me no purpose, and I, like so many others, would only show the highs when life was far from that. I was so focused on what others thought of my captions, my posts, and all those other things, when in reality, those people would maybe spend 10, 20 seconds looking at it before scrolling down to the next post and going on with their days. It was unhealthy for me, and is for a bunch of folks who even still fail to realize it. They seek attention and validation from people on it who they don't even interact with or could care less about. So I deactivated my main Instagram account for over a year and took a break from social media briefly as well. With that, it allowed me to actually focus on myself and the folks who truly cared about me and served a meaningful purpose in my life, those authentic ones. I replaced many of my old habits with new ones, and I started to get into nature more than ever. Being around green presented me with many benefits, and it was able to drastically reduce the high stress levels I experienced, the ones I failed to properly address beforehand. I became more mindful of my triggers and less worried about them internally. I was able to truly start understanding who I was, something I never even paid attention to before. I understood what I wanted in life, what my purpose was, what I wanted in a future partner, and so many other things that made well, John. All in all, I started to put my focus on myself and take care of myself, learning to not only love myself, but also be comfortable by myself. I straight up admit that I had always been that one to rely on women, family, unhealthy friendships, even pornography, and so forth to satisfy me. But I needed my own form of joy. So from the start of my spiritual journey in 2020 till now, I've become more spiritual through Christ, gotten into nature, changed my social media patterns, become more patient, took my focus off of pointless things like celebrities and drama, developing my overall knowledge on how I can become the best version of myself. I was even able to start a YouTube channel, which is something I never would have been able to do in the past, or even thought about attempting. This journey really helped me become much more socially conscious of who I am as an individual, as well as the people in society around me. I'm thankful to the Most High for that. This was the right journey all along, and I felt great about doing the right things to get to where I needed to be. But the story doesn't end there. While I did remain committed to my spiritual practices and beliefs, the things I practiced to get me to the level of spirituality I was at slowly started to fade at the beginning of this year. I was fully back on social media, and even though I disconnected myself from followers, likes, and so forth, I started using it again to follow celebrity drama and mindlessly scroll, as well as lust over women. Some I personally knew, and some I didn't even know, but I created fantasies of. I started going outside less, spending hours upon hours on my phone and video games. Meditation became almost non existent. My relationship with God was very minimal, as I would only read the Bible and watch Christian videos occasionally. I would listen to gospel music on some days while also playing secular music, talking about violence, sex, and drugs on others. I'd only go out on specific occasions. Being amongst that toxic presence opened the door for my spirit to crave that environment even more. The stuff I watched on TV wasn't the most pleasing either. I even slipped back into pornography when I had been 2+ years free from it. So many parts of my life had unhealthy cracks, but yet I chose to avoid them rather than be honest with myself. Not only was I hiding my problems from others, but myself as well. I even tried hiding them from God, but of course, He saw it all. I psyched myself into believing that since I was still spiritually in tune with myself while doing those things, that I was okay. I told myself that what I was doing was only a phase, and I would soon go back to everything I had learned because I knew how to do so. Soon slowly turned into forever. I thought since I had been on the spiritual journey for a while, been through long streaks of seeming retention, stopped going out, and became more socially conscious of the world around me, that other things I was doing wouldn't affect my spirit as badly. But that wasn't the case. I was wrong. Ways I thought I had escaped, temptation slowly sucked me back in, and once again I became attached to more flesh-pleasing things from the world than more spiritual-based things from Christ. I needed to get back grounded. I needed to address all my coping patterns, not just some. I needed to be fully honest with myself, vulnerable, truly authentic. I started doing this by placing more of my focus on the eternal goal, my soul, rather than on the temporary one, my flesh. Those habits I had once been consistent with, I got back into them. Only this time, I made sure to address each and every one properly while removing things from my life that were either ungodly or not good for my spirit. I stopped watching movies and shows, even my favorite TV show, Power, that were not appropriate for my soul. I completely cut out secular music that focuses on money, sex, drugs, and violence because I do not want to open those doors for demonic spirits. Even hip hop, the genre which I spent all my life listening to, I had to cut out almost my whole playlist And boy, was that a tough thing to do, but it's been totally worth it. I've once again been getting out into nature and enjoying the green and blue God created for me and the rest of us. I've now limited the amount of time I spend both on social media and video games. I mostly only use social media nowadays to keep in contact with family and friends as well as follow sports related content. I've replaced the majority of the time I would spend on those things with other things, like more time reading God's Word, writing, watching informative content, putting together puzzles, and doing more art related things like drawing, coloring, and creating content. I even improved my sleep schedule a bit and been working out consistently again. Now, my diet is something that can still use some work, but it's not completely junk, so that's progress. The biggest change, though, is that I've been spending more time with God than I ever had previously. Rather than just watching videos about Him, this time I've actually been in His Word daily, and I can feel His presence around me. His presence has always kept me away from my old temptations and desires. His vision of eternal life for me is much more important than heaven on earth that so many people in our society today continue to seek. I'm seeking His fruits. The one thing I always failed to realize is that I kept going through similar trials and tribulations over and over again because He wanted me to rely on Him rather than just on myself. The real answers lied in His words. Going through this journey of spirituality through Christ has been life changing for me. If you told me even a few years ago that I'd be where I am today, I would have possibly questioned your sanity. This journey has brought me a level of peace and joy that I was never able to get from the world. Being in the world, but not of the world, is a great feeling to have. Many folks still even question why I chose this path in the first place, and that's fine. To them, I say that I'm seeking understanding from God and not man. Hopefully, the journey I've been through can be an inspiration for others striving to better themselves. This journey has been far from an easy one and will always have challenges presented as tests along the way. I've slipped up numerous times. I still have those unhealthy thoughts at times, so I don't want to paint myself as this perfect being all of a sudden. I'll leave that level of perfection to Christ Himself. The story may end here for now, but my journey is far from finished. It's everlasting. Blessings.